Welcome back, everybody. In this episode, we're on Kgari, formerly known as Fraser Island. We're here for a week, and so far it has been fantastic. The weather's been perfect. We visited a fair few places that you might have on your bucket list. I've learned a lot of tips and tricks, so come along as we show you how. Accessed by ferry, this is the world's largest sand island. And it certainly didn't disappoint, being a bucket list item for many of us out there. From beach fishing to all the inland trails, this place has a lot to offer. But during the winter months, you get to see something really special. And that is the annual whale migration north. Given you're a little bit further out from the coastline, you get a first-hand experience of all these pods travelling up the coast, playing around, frolicking, and it's a really cool experience. All this adds to what is quite a diverse experience as the landscape just changes so much. But for most of us, it's the allure of the sand driving, whether it be along the beach, through the inland tracks or anything in between. It's certainly plenty of fun and you just park up wherever you want and you can literally enjoy kilometres of pristine beachfront all to yourself. Now this trip is just Zach and myself as Michelle and Sam had to stay back for a soccer tournament. And we're actually staying at the Fraser beachfront holiday houses with Michelle's family and some of their friends. Now this is a prime beachfront location at Poyungan Rocks. Located about a third of the way up the east coast, it was a great handy central location to base ourselves out of, with Eurong about half an hour south and a lot of the other attractions just a short drive up the beach. They have 2 beachfront houses and a cottage, each accommodating between 8 and 12 people, so it's a great spot to put on your list if you're not camping or wanting to stay at one of the resorts. Now I think this is one of the rare ones that are so close to the ocean where you do get that full view and experience. You can just take your fishing rod down, flick it out, catch some fish. It's fantastic. And for us, we can just quickly drive up the beach, which we're going to do this afternoon. And there's some really good fishing holes as you go up there. It's handy having a family that's experienced with the area. They know how the fish sort of work, where all the holes are. And I think that's made it really fun, especially for Zach, who loves getting in and having a bit of a fish. Just up the back there is a bypass road. So we're on the northern side of Poyungan Rocks. And you've got all this coffee rock that runs down along the coast here. Now, if you head further north, you go straight up to Eli Creek. You got the Maheno Shipwreck, and then you can go all the way up at the moment to Ngkala Rocks. It's closed up there, we've discovered, but the scenery and the coastline through here is absolutely amazing. But before I get into some tips and tricks, let's show you a few of the attractions. The first one is we headed straight up the beach on the second day, and we had to check out Eli Creek. Probably one of the most famous locations on Fraser Island is Eli Creek, and you literally drive past it if you're driving up the east coast of Kgari itself. Its primary attraction is this freshwater creek that runs down from the inland and drains out to the ocean. During the peak season summer months, it's incredibly busy here. However, in winter, you can pretty much drive up any time of the day, get a spot, relax, and enjoy this beautiful location. There are a number of walking trails and boardwalks, one that actually runs through the bushland. The other is a boardwalk that follows the creek up. It only takes a few minutes, but it wanders you through the beautiful forest here. However, it leads you to the entry to the creek where you can actually put your inflatables in and float all the way down to the beach area itself. And this is one of the main experiences that Eli Creek is very famous for, particularly during summer. The one thing you will notice is that this is a primary attraction where a lot of the buses stop in, so you do get an influx of people from time to time. However, while the water was fresh, it wasn't too chilly, so while the kids had fun playing in the water, going up and down the sand dunes, the adults all relaxed and enjoyed Eli Creek and had a bit of an explore. And while you're in the area, it's only a short drive up the beach to one of the other very, very famous attractions, which is the Maheno Shipwreck. It's quite a busy place, and I was actually amazed by how many caravans went up and down the beach, particularly in low tide. And one of the cool things is that the beach acts as an airstrip for a number of the planes that come in as well. So you can see here the caravans have quickly gone through, they've stopped the other end, and then the plane just takes off in between all the traffic that's going up and down the beach. It's a very cool thing to see for the first time, particularly in the busy time of the day. However, the shipwreck itself is really, really interesting. You can tell it's decaying and disappearing into the ocean at a very quick rate. And once you actually see the drone shots from this side, you can see how it just gets battered by the waves constantly, day to day and year to year. And it's worth looking into the history of this shipwreck and how it came to be. If you go into the general store at Happy Valley, which is about 15 minutes south of the shipwreck itself, there is a really cool model and a little bit of history about the shipwreck itself. And if you put this against what remains of the shipwreck on the beach, it highlights how little of the ship remains after it was beached here during a cyclone back in 1935. It's a very cool thing to look at, especially when you consider how large and grand this ship used to be. It is something you obviously need to see. It's another one of those touristy destinations. We've actually spent probably 3 or 4 hours fishing down here now, just relaxing, having a lot of fun. But so far, today has been spectacular. This is probably the perfect winter day up here on Fraser Island, and I am loving it. So we continued fishing for another few hours, seeing as though it was such a nice day up there. Then it was time to head back down the beach, which is always great fun. And as we cleaned the day's catch, sat back and enjoyed the rest of the night, we were woken to another beautiful Fraser Coast sunrise, not a cloud in sight, and the waves gently rolling onto the beach below. It's the perfect way to wake up and welcome a new day. Now, an interesting little fact is that a lot of the houses on Fraser Island are actually pole homes. So inside the houses, you have these big poles that go from top to bottom with a lot of structure in through them. In this one, they're all fully exposed, which I think is actually really, really cool. Historically, that's why they had the timber industry over here. They had to obviously build all the houses and structures over here, but a lot of the timber was taken over to the mainland as well. It just tells a little bit of a story about how the houses are constructed over here, which in my mind is a bit of a logistical nightmare given everything needs to be ferried over. Now, these houses are actually off-grid, so you can't really bring along any appliances, but we've got a solution for that. We've got the coffee machine, so the back of the ute's been a little barista station every morning. And the one thing I've added, which has been a game changer, is that I bought a Starlink Mini before we headed off, because the reception over here isn't too crash hot. While you don't need it, it's nice just to be able to check in every now and again. In my case, I could do some messenger calls back to Michelle and Sam at home to see how the soccer's going, and that has actually worked extremely well. The one thing I'll note is that it is reasonably power hungry, so make sure you put it to sleep. And what I've been doing is actually shutting the whole power station down so it's not drawing down overnight. It's down to about 40% now because we ran it pretty hard last night. I've made about 3 or 4 coffees this morning, But as soon as we head back down the beach, it's charging at 500 watts and it tops it up in no time at all. And after a bit of brekkie, it was time to head back up the beach. And today we're actually heading further north, up towards Ngkala Rocks, where we're going to check out Orchid Beach and the champagne pools which you pass along the way. And I'm really excited about this because it gives us a chance to go through some of the more northern inland tracks, as well as that beautiful beach area up towards the Sandy Cape. And as we go across the crossing here into Orchid Beach, you'll notice there's these cattle grids and some wires that run along them. And that is because a lot of the little villages scattered around Fraser Island are fenced in from the dingoes now. So that's a really interesting part of the dingo management plan on the island. But as you turn up to the car park at Orchid Beach, you're greeted by this big grassy area where the helicopters come and land. It overlooks the coastline, and then you walk up into the Orchid Beach bar and general store itself, which is, again, one of those things I just wanted to go and check out. And while it was a little bit too early to have a beer and a pub lunch, we did have some tasty bakery treats, a bit of a coffee, and then set off to explore Ngkala Rocks. So this is the most famous part, I think, of Fraser Island, other than some of the lakes and stuff like that, because it's one of the most hardcore, treacherous treks up over the top of one of the headlands here. Now, unfortunately, it's not open, but you get a real feel for what it's like. And obviously the sands all come in, so I believe, particularly behind me here, it used to be a lot deeper. And this is the start where you see a lot of the videos, and you go up over the top, around the headland there, down the other side, and off onto the beach over the other side. I must admit, I didn't realise that it had such a narrow cutting on the entry into here. And again, it's got a lot more sand in it now, but it's still quite gnarly if you want to drive through there. So all the cyclone and east coast lows through here have changed the landscape quite a lot. The beaches have a lot more sand on them than I was expecting, so that's good. And the drive up here is amazing. It is absolutely beautiful. So while this is our first trip up to Jackery or Fraser Island, we'll definitely be coming back because, again, this is a bit of a taster. We'll bring the whole family up next time and we're going to really explore everything that's out here. But I'd love to give this track here a bit of a go one day because that's obviously on everyone's bucket list. I'm taking my glasses off now because I'm not in the direct sun, but it's pretty cool to see it in real life. It's just a shame you can't actually do it at the moment. So it looks like access to the Sandy Cape area is going to be restricted for quite some time. But I thought as we go through this washout, it's important to note that some of these drop downs are quite deep. So it's good if you're following someone, you see what they do, or if you are driving solo, you take care and slow down when these wash-ups come through, just so you don't drop down and cause damage to your vehicle. We had a little bit of fun on the way back with the Raptor, going over some of the whoops and stuff like that, as we headed back south on our way to the champagne pools. And as we go through one of the coastal bypass tracks, heading back south, it's hard to describe just how nice this place really is. I actually really like the inland tracks, just driving through the forests and how it changes with all the different topography and landscape you're travelling through. It's a really nice place to venture through, not just up and down the beach. You've got to head inland and check out some of these tracks. For us, this is the only way to get to the champagne pools, but it was such a beautiful drive. The main car park at the Champagne Pools does get quite busy. However, it does have toilets, so you can actually refresh there before you head down the boardwalk towards what is one of the most amazing coastlines I've seen in a very long time. You get these epic views of the coastline as the tracks pop out to the beach areas. And while it was low tide when we visited, the pools get their name by the waves crashing over these rocks at high tide, which creates a foam that rolls into the pools themselves. So the perfect time to visit would be at high tide, but just check out this coastline. It is simply stunning and worth a visit for this alone. And while there are many dingoes on the island, I did happen to capture one here on the walk back, but you need to keep your distance and be dingo aware. There are plenty of signs around, including this one, which is at the start of the boardwalk itself. And as we turn off to head towards the cathedrals, which is our camping area, it brings up the unique way you drive around Fraser Island, in that you simply drive off the beach, up a sandy track, and then you're into a little village where there might be a general store or something like that. There's no gravelled or sealed roads, so to speak. Other than around the Eurong Resort, it is primarily sand everywhere, which I think is part of the intimate experience you get here. And as we headed into the general store for a cheeky afternoon ice cream after a day of exploring, it went down incredibly well, even though it was close to double the price. But you can see here as we drive back onto the beach, it's just such a unique experience, just driving in and out off the beach, on the sand, and after a few days you really get used to it, and it's just part and parcel of the Fraser Island experience. Now, the one thing I will say, if you don't like sand, this probably isn't the place for you. This is a sand island and it just goes everywhere. The one thing I wish I did, but I didn't get enough time to do it, was to give the underbody a full wash and put some protectant in underneath it. I didn't think it would be too much of an issue, but you do drive through a lot of water while you're traversing up and down the coastline here. Now, it's a mixture of fresh and salt water, because you've got everything draining out from all the inland areas onto the beach. Obviously, you don't want to be driving through the surf, but you are driving through wet sand quite often. Now, obviously, with the wheel offset we've got here, a bit of sand does tend to spray up the side, but it's just something you need to manage while you're out and about. And one advice that I would have is bring a little dustpan brush with you. That allows you to brush your feet off and everything before you get in. Paul, that has the white raptor that you'll see on this video, he actually, which I think is a really cool idea, he pulled his mats out and he actually put black garbage bags all over the carpet inside his raptor and tucked it in under the seats and everything. So you don't end up with the sand that spills off the mats and into the little crevices down into the carpet, which makes it incredibly hard to get out. Now, me, with the carpeted back, I am getting some sand in there and I just need to deal with that. But if you have a little blower, even that little pump pack, which I meant to bring, the pump pack shower, would have been really good just to hose things off a little bit, just to keep that salt and spray off. I'm imagining during summer it's not so bad, but the sand is quite wet during the winter months here. So it's quite often wet sand that you're trying to clean off your feet, legs and everything. And it gets dragged all inside your vehicle. And if you're staying in holiday accommodation, inside there. So, make sure you're not trashing the places and putting sand everywhere. And obviously sweep regularly to make sure you're keeping everything nice and tidy. But as I said, if you don't like sand, this certainly isn't the place for you. So that's just a few tips and tricks for you. Now, the next morning we decided to head south as we were going to check out Lake McKenzie. First stop was Eurong for a coffee and another little bakery treat, but I actually really enjoyed driving through this Poyungan Rocks area. In this case, we're actually going over the bypass because it's reasonably high tide, but this area was actually quite fun to drive through, so I thought I'd just give you a little snippet of what it's like. Just went over a few whoops while we were recording. There's a dingo here, some caravans. So everyone's sort of waiting for each other. We're just going to head along here. I'm trying not to drive in the beach. Oh, there's a drone there. That's what's happening.
They're looking at.
So they were filming that dingo there. You do see dingoes all along the beach. And that's something that the rangers have been really particular about, making sure that your dingo are aware. So you have some PVC pipe that you use as sticks. You always carry them down to the beach, and particularly when you've got kids, you need to make sure that they're aware. They can't run, dance around or anything if there's a dingo nearby, because that excites them, and that is what leads to some of the attacks that you see down the track. A lot of the dingoes that are doing that are juveniles, and they're a little bit naughty, so to speak. So that's a really interesting thing about Fraser Island. You've got signs everywhere, and it's about educating all the tourists that come over here the dangers, or the potential dangers of the dingoes. They're not puppy dogs, they are wild animals, and you just need to be a little bit careful. Particularly when you're fishing, they'll actually come over and try to get your fish, your bait, and everything like that. So you have to keep everything covered. So it's been a really interesting part of being over here on Fraser Island, or kgari as you call it now. And the family that we're here with, that's sort of guiding us around, have been coming to the same place for 12 years. So they know everything about it. And obviously they're proper fishermen. They know what they're doing. Zach, how many have you caught, do you think?
I've caught 7. Yeah, We've had keepers.
4 keepers, which have been a combination of brim and darts.
Yeah.
I'm actually... And yeah, we're after Taylor. That's what we really want to get. So I've got a lure on my big rod now. I'm going to try that this afternoon, and hopefully we have some success because they reckon the fish are going to come on this afternoon. I'll put a little photo here. We had a great session yesterday afternoon, just about a kilometre down from where we're staying on the beach there, and we got 20 fish, didn't we?
Yeah, we got 20 fish.
Significant has happened up near Eurong. They got banners up and ambulance and ranger here.
Now, we just went past an incident on the beach. The rangers are there. It was actually a whale that washed up. But that raises another important point. You need to be careful on the beach. There are speed limits. You need to stay with that. We have been breathalyzed a few times, so the police are out here enforcing it, even on what is a pretty quiet week. We've been basically cruising along at 50 to 60, maybe 70 where we're doing the long stretches, and that's been fine. There's a number of washouts, so you need to look ahead. Look at what the vehicles are doing in front of you if there's some vehicles there, and slow down for some of those washouts because they have some deep dives into them. But otherwise, hey, it's great fun. I highly recommend you come here. It is certainly one of those bucket list items that I'm happy we've ticked off. But again, this is a taster because we're going to bring the whole family back. And now we can be little tour guides and show them around.
Yeah, can't wait.
And so this is the approach into Eurong, which is a resort on the east coast. And then you have Kingfisher Resort, which is over on the west coast. But this is the one place you drive in. And again, you can see the cattle grates here, which is a part of the dingo fence around the resort itself. And you actually hit a little bit of sealed road, which is quite unusual. And particularly when you're in four-wheel drive the whole time, it's something different switching back to two-wheel drive to reverse park and stuff like that. But this is actually one of the main little villages. So you've got a general store, which also has diesel if you need it. You've got the resort itself and a really, really good bakery. It's quite busy. You can see all the tourist buses coming in and out, as well as the supply trucks. But it's one of the hubs that you go to when you need to replenish your supplies. So we're deep in the rainforest, heading to Lake McKenzie now. It's about 13 kilometres from Eurong. The one thing you need to be considering is that the road does get quite chopped up from time to time because there's a lot of traffic that goes backwards and forwards, including the tourist buses. And for some of the inland tracks, you have a lot of trucks because obviously everything needs to be trucked over here in four-wheel drive trucks. I've been really, really curious and interested about that. The whole logistics of bringing things onto the island, it's quite amazing, to be honest. So we've watched a hook truck going backwards and forwards, noting that we're staying at Poyungan Rocks there, and he'll have different things from time to time. And we're just reversing back to let a few of the tourist buses go through. And they really do have precedent on the island. You have to be really careful around the tourist buses because they do go quite fast down the beach and they don't really give way to you. But so far it's been a really nice drive. As you can see, we're deep in the forest here and it's a subtropical rainforest, I would say. It's a much different experience to what you actually get when you're driving up and down the beaches. So I highly recommend you go in and experience some of the inland parts of Fraser Island itself as well. That brings up another important point about a lot of these inland tracks. They're actually single lane but two ways. So there's quite a number of passing opportunities, little pull-offs that you go into, but you do need to actually be aware that there'll be traffic coming the other way. Now you would have seen there, we just passed another ranger, and that's an example of having to pass people on some of these tracks. If you can, make sure you bring a UHF so that if you are traveling in a convoy, you can communicate down the line to let each other know that there's traffic coming down the track and where they are, the type of vehicle, so everyone is aware. And then me being the last person, I'll notify them that we're clear and through so that everyone can keep traversing up and down the line without too many dramas at all. Obviously, just be aware of your surroundings and you'll have a great old time while you're out here. And in just a few minutes, we'd arrived at Lake McKenzie. Now, Lake McKenzie is quite a beautiful spot. It's known as a perched lake, meaning it's made up of only rainwater. It doesn't drain to the ocean, and it isn't fed by any groundwater at all. And it's got this beautiful crystal white silica sand that is very reminiscent of Whitehaven Beach up in the Whitsundays. So that's a perfect excuse for a quick photo opportunity. Now, it was beautiful and sunny when we got here, but you can see the water here is crystal clear. It's a little bit chilly in winter, but we've had a really strange phenomenon here where a low-lying fog-like cloud has come in. So I've got a few shots from up in the air. It's a little bit magical, but it's not what you would normally expect here. Normally you've got bright sunshine and the crystal clear water as far as you can see, but it created for some quite cool imagery, so check it out. And after a quick stop at Eurong on our return trip, we headed back up the beach to finish off our afternoon's activities. At this time, because it was low tide, we got a chance to go around the headland at Poyungan Rocks, which was pretty cool. And while you see people doing it towards the high tide, it's a lot safer and better for your vehicle if you go through at low tide. And then to join onto the track, you climb up a few rocks, which is a bit of fun. And we're back at the beach house to repack our rods, all our bait, a few drinks, and head back down the beach to do a bit more fishing. And this is the example of the dart that we were typically fishing. Pretty much dart and brim. The tailor unfortunately didn't come on in the week we were there, but it's still fun nonetheless. And then our final excursion on this particular trip was up to Lake Allom, and the drive in here was absolutely spectacular. The Lake Allom, it's famous for turtles. You're not supposed to feed them, but I think most people do, hence the turtles come in. And it's a great place to go with the kids, but for me, the drive in and out was the highlight of this particular day trip. And really, that's the aim of the game. You want to be trying to tick off one place a day, otherwise you're trying to squeeze way too much in to your holiday over on Fraser Island, and it just doesn't make it the relaxing experience it should be. It's well worth the drive just for the scenery, but that's where visiting with someone that's got some experience really comes into play. Or you watch these kind of videos because you get to see all these little experiences that you mightn't know necessarily exist. So to actually get onto this trail, you head just past the shipwreck and it's just up on your left-hand side if you're heading north. But there's a lookout that you come across as you're driving up. So there's a bit of a walk from the main car park area, and you've got Knifeblade Sandblow lookout, and you get this amazing view over the sand dunes. And exposed sand dunes is something you don't see when you're driving up around the coast, but obviously they exist where the wind goes ripping through the valleys of the island itself, and the vegetation can't grow on there. But really, how nice is this? This is what we come down to every afternoon, do a spot of fishing, and we've been doing really, really well. As I said, I'm not a mad fisherman. I'm learning as I'm going, and I've been having lots of fun. In fact, the rod we bought for Zach has worked out so much better than my 10-foot rod. So if you are coming here, do some research on beach or surf fishing gear. I would highly recommend, based on what everyone's been using, around about a 9-foot rod. Zach's actually got a 9-foot graphite rod, and it's so responsive. It just works really, really well. But I thought I'd actually add into the video some tips and tricks or things we've learned along the way. And the first thing is obviously fuel usage. We filled up at Rainbow Beach to get across here, and we've used 3/4 of a tank. So over the space of a week, we should have used around about 1 tank. I might actually top up a little bit at Eurong on our way back. Just $20 just to get us back in case we hit some soft sand or something like that. So I've got a little bit of reserve. But I would say if you're coming here for a week, driving up and down, doing a lot of exploring, a tank, maybe a tank and a bit will suit you very, very well. So the Ranger, in the space of 4 to 5 days, we've used 3/4 of a tank. Greg's Triton back here, he's on half a tank. The Raptor down the end, he's actually filled up a few times. So different vehicles are going to consume different amounts of fuel. And again, it depends on how far you're going. Fuel is actually quite expensive over here. So that's just one of those things you have to allow for when you come over to the island. And that takes me into cost. So you need to bring over as many supplies as you possibly can. If you need to buy things over here on the island, it is very expensive. I would say around double the price is what you're looking at, in all honesty. So allow for double the price and you should be roughly right. We got 2 litres of milk today, and I don't know how much that costs, but everything we've noticed is pretty much got a markup of around 100%. Now, noting everyone is driving up and down the sand, this is a sand island. You need to bring over recovery gear. Now, I haven't gone crazy. I've got some cheap sandboards, which I've got located on our rack here. I've actually put a recovery hitch in, and then I've got my normal recovery gear, which is snatch strap and stuff like that. If you're buying new recovery gear, you get all the nylon shackles and stuff like that, and maybe one of the better sort of snatch ropes. But we've got some pretty old school gear here because I generally don't tend to use it. But make sure you bring some over. Now, if you're traveling with a group like this, actually coordinate between you to make sure you're not duplicating and bringing over a whole heap of gear that you don't really need. So in my case, because we came up from Newcastle, I have actually brought with me an air compressor so I can pump up the tyres. I probably didn't really need that. Also bought a butane cooker in case we're cooking snags while we're fishing and stuff like that. We haven't used that either. I bought 2 camp chairs, which I've had on the back tray of the ute for most of the trip, but we've pulled them off now. We haven't used them. So it really depends on what you're doing, but definitely coordinate between everyone to make sure that you're not duplicating with too much gear that you can share between the vehicles. Now, one thing I do think is a really good piece of equipment to bring is a UHF. So I've got a handheld 5-watt Uniden UHF, which is really, really good. So that's worked perfectly up and down along the coast here. We've got another pair of camping UHFs, which are probably 2-watt, I think. And then Grant with the Prado back there, he's got a installed UHF radio. So we can all communicate while we're traveling along. And where that comes into play is when you're doing those inland tracks. Those are to single lane tracks. You can actually say, look, there's someone coming, we need to reverse back or, pull off to the side, or they're waiting for us so the convoy can go through. Communication is a really big thing. If you can get a UHF into all the vehicles, it makes a really big difference because we don't have phone reception here. You do get limited phone reception, I find, pretty much along the coast, but it is very, very scattered and you can't rely on the phone reception. For example, Greg got a flat tyre on the way out of Happy Valley this afternoon. It was pouring down rain and I didn't notice he dropped off. He didn't have a UHF because we had a bit of a muddle up this morning and he got left back there. So we got back, found some reception, I returned and he already changed it and then we both came back down the beach. So it just avoids all that hassle so you can help each other out and make sure that you're not losing anyone while you're traveling along. And then finally, and this is advice that I've seen in a number of different guides and stuff like that, aim to visit one location per day. I think that is the best advice, and that's been something that we've been doing on this whole entire trip. We're not seeing the whole island, we're just ticking off one spot pretty much every day, and it's actually worked really, really well. That makes sure you're back, mid-afternoon, and you can relax and enjoy this beautiful coastline wherever you're staying. Go out, have a fish, and it is really, really great fun. And that's pretty much it. We're now on our way home. It's been a fantastic 4 days. They've got 2 barges running here, so we're waiting for one to come across. We'll load up. We'll head back to Rainbow Beach, where we'll air up, get some food. Apparently there's a really good bakery, so remember to check that out. We might come back next year. However, we also have a few other trips planned. So we'll see, because there's still a lot more to explore on this island. I think you'd probably need 3 trips to see everything, or you spend, 2 or 3 weeks here. But if you're doing it a week at a time, you're only going to see 4 or 5 things. But I think you'll see just from this video, it has been fantastic. I really thank Michelle's brother, his wife, the Tolchers, for inviting us along. And a huge thank you goes to the Curry family for giving us a bit of a guided tour around the island, seeing all those places and a few of the secret spots that you mightn't necessarily know they're there. They helped us a lot with all the fishing, and they have been a really, really great group to hang out with. So I really thank them. But for now, I can hear the ferry coming along. I'm going to wrap things up. As I always say, thanks for watching. Get out there, stay safe, have fun, and we'll catch you next time.